Genghis Khan, born as Temujin in the late 12th century, emerged from the harsh steppes of Mongolia to become one of history's most formidable conquerors. Rising from a fragmented tribal world marked by betrayal and warfare, he united the Mongol clans through a combination of strategic alliances, strict military discipline, and uncompromising authority. Proclaimed Great Khan in 1206, he began a campaign of expansion that would reshape the known world. His forces, renowned for their speed, discipline, and psychological warfare, swept across Asia with devastating efficiency. Under his command, the Mongol Empire embarked on extensive campaigns against the Khwarezmian Empire, the Jin dynasty, and numerous Central Asian kingdoms. Cities that resisted were often annihilated, with entire populations slaughtered as a warning to others. Reports from chroniclers described mass executions, burning settlements, and the systematic use of terror to ensure submission. Genghis Khan's approach to warfare was ruthless, prioritizing conquest above mercy, and his campaigns are estimated to have caused millions of deaths. Despite his brutality, he implemented administrative reforms and promoted religious tolerance within his empire. He established the Yasa law code, encouraged trade along the Silk Road, and facilitated communication across vast territories. His legacy, therefore, is deeply dual in nature, a creator of an imperial system and a destroyer of civilizations. By the time of his death in 1227, the Mongol Empire had become the largest continuous land empire in history. Genghis Khan remains a symbol of unmatched military genius, tempered by the profound cruelty with which he forged his dominion. Vlad III, commonly known as Vlad the Impaler and later associated with the Dracula legend, was a 15th century ruler of Wallachia, a region in present-day Romania. Born in 1431 into the House of Draculești, he ascended to power during a period of profound political instability and constant conflict with the Ottoman Empire. Determined to secure his rule and protect his territory, Vlad adopted extreme measures to instill fear and maintain strict control over his subjects and enemies alike. His infamous epithet, the Impaler, derived from his preferred method of execution, impalement. Vlad reportedly ordered thousands to be impaled on wooden stakes, leaving fields of corpses as grim warnings to invaders and dissenters. During his campaigns, he targeted both Ottoman forces and internal rivals, viewing terror as a tool of statecraft. Contemporary accounts describe entire villages annihilated, prisoners mutilated, and traitors subjected to prolonged torture. His reign became synonymous with cruelty, not only for the scale of violence, but for its calculated display. Despite his brutality, Vlad is considered by some a defender of his homeland, credited with resisting Ottoman expansion into Europe. He fortified his borders, reorganized governance, and demanded absolute loyalty. His actions, though savage, aimed to consolidate power in a region fractured by noble rivalries and foreign threats. Vlad's legacy endures as a figure both feared and revered, a ruthless ruler whose reign blurred the line between justice and horror. Over time, legend embellished his cruelty, transforming him into a symbol of tyranny and dark immortality in European folklore. Ivan IV Vasilievich, commonly known as Ivan the Terrible, was the first ruler to be crowned Tsar of all Russia. Born in 1530, he inherited the throne at a young age and endured a childhood marked by court intrigue, betrayal, and violence, experiences that shaped his volatile reign. Initially, Ivan introduced significant reforms, modernizing governance, centralizing power, and promoting a strong Russian state. However, as his rule progressed, his methods grew increasingly autocratic and brutal. The turning point in his reign came after the death of his beloved wife, Anastasia Romanovna, which fueled his suspicion and hostility toward the boyar nobility. In 1565, he established the Oprichnina, a separate territory under his direct control, enforced by loyal oprichniki, agents who carried out widespread purges, executions, and confiscations. Entire towns were subjected to massacres, most notably the destruction of Novgorod, where thousands were tortured and drowned under accusations of treason. Ivan's reign of terror instilled fear across the realm, as dissent was met with cruel and public punishment. His personal violence extended beyond political enemies. In a notorious fit of rage, he struck and killed his own son and heir, Ivan Ivanovich, an act that symbolized the depth of his tyranny. Although he expanded Russian territory and centralized state power, his legacy is stained by the scale of suffering inflicted on his people. Ivan the Terrible remains a complex figure, credited with shaping Russia into a powerful state, yet condemned for ruling through fear, chaos, and relentless brutality. Adolf Hitler, born in 1889 in Austria, rose to power as the leader of the National Socialist German Workers' Party, Nazi Party, and became Chancellor of Germany in 1933. His ascent marked the beginning of one of the darkest eras in modern history. With a vision of absolute control and ideological domination, Hitler transformed Germany into a totalitarian state, dismantling democratic institutions and enforcing strict loyalty through propaganda, surveillance, and oppression. Central to his ideology was an extreme doctrine of racial purity, which targeted Jews, Romani people, disabled individuals, and other groups deemed undesirable. Under his leadership, Germany initiated World War II in 1939 with the invasion of Poland. Hitler's military ambitions led to a global conflict that claimed tens of millions of lives. His regime orchestrated the Holocaust, a systematic genocide in which 6 million Jews were murdered through mass shootings, ghettos, forced labor, and extermination camps such as Auschwitz and Treblinka. The brutality of his policies extended to occupied territories, where populations faced starvation, torture, and mass execution. Hitler maintained power through fear, eliminating opposition and indoctrinating citizens with nationalist fervor. As the war turned against Germany, his leadership grew increasingly erratic, marked by destructive military orders and refusal to surrender. In 1945, as Allied forces closed in on Berlin, Hitler died by suicide in his bunker. The legacy of Adolf Hitler is one of profound destruction. His pursuit of absolute power and ideological extremism reshaped the world through unimaginable cruelty. He remains a symbol of tyranny, genocide, and the catastrophic consequences of unchecked hatred. Joseph Stalin, born in 1878 in Georgia, rose to power following the Russian Revolution and became the leader of the Soviet Union after Vladimir Lenin's death. As General Secretary of the Communist Party, Stalin consolidated authority through political maneuvering, purges, and the elimination of rivals. By the late 1920s, he had established an authoritarian regime that sought rapid industrialization and absolute state control, transforming the USSR into a centralized superpower at an immense human cost. Stalin's rule was marked by widespread terror and systemic brutality. His policy of forced collectivization aimed to control agriculture, but led to catastrophic famines, most notably the Holodomor in Ukraine, where millions perished from starvation. Political dissent, real or perceived, was met with ruthless repression. During the Great Purge of the 1930s, Stalin orchestrated mass arrests, executions, and deportations to labor camps known as the Gulag, where countless prisoners died under harsh conditions. Despite the internal devastation, Stalin played a crucial role in World War II, leading the Soviet Union against Nazi Germany. Victory in the war elevated the USSR's global status, but life under Stalin remained defined by fear, censorship, and absolute obedience. His control over society extended to culture, education, and personal expression, leaving no room for opposition. When Stalin died in 1953, he left behind a transformed but traumatized nation. His legacy remains deeply controversial, credited with industrial and military achievements, yet condemned for orchestrating one of the most oppressive regimes in modern history. His rule epitomizes the extreme consequences of totalitarian power. Saloth Sar, known to the world as Pol Pot, was the leader of the Khmer Rouge and the architect of one of the most devastating genocides of the 20th century. Born in 1925 in Cambodia, he emerged from a background of political activism influenced by communist ideology. In 1975, following years of civil conflict, Pol Pot and the Khmer Rouge seized control of Phnom Penh, declaring the establishment of democratic Kampuchea. His vision was to create an agrarian utopia by eradicating modern society, dismantling institutions, and purging all perceived enemies of the revolution. Pol Pot immediately evacuated urban populations into rural labor camps, forcing millions into hard agricultural labor under brutal conditions. Money, religion, education, and traditional family structures were abolished in an attempt to create a classless society. Anyone associated with intellectualism, foreign influence, or dissent, teachers, doctors, monks, and professionals, was targeted for execution. The killing fields became sites of mass murder, where countless victims were beaten or executed without trial. Between 1975 and 1979, an estimated 2 million Cambodians, nearly a quarter of the population, died from starvation, disease, overwork, and execution. The regime's secrecy and paranoia fueled continuous purges, turning even loyal cadres into victims. In 1979, the Khmer Rouge was overthrown by Vietnamese forces, and Pol Pot fled into exile, never facing trial for his crimes. Pol Pot's rule left Cambodia shattered, with a legacy defined by suffering and destruction. He remains a stark symbol of ideological extremism, taken to its most lethal extreme, where the pursuit of utopia resulted in unparalleled horror. Idi Amin Dada, born around 1925 in Uganda, rose from a military background to become one of Africa's most infamous dictators. After joining the British colonial army and later the Ugandan military, he seized power in 1971 through a coup that overthrew President Milton Obote. Promising reform and national revival, Amin initially received support, but his rule quickly descended into tyranny, marked by brutality, ethnic persecution, and economic collapse. Amin consolidated control through fear, targeting political opponents, intellectuals, and ethnic groups he deemed disloyal, particularly the Acholi and Lango peoples. His regime was responsible for the disappearance, torture, and execution of an estimated 300,000 people. Mass arrests, death squads, and secret prisons became instruments of state policy. In 1972, Amin expelled the Asian community from Uganda, seizing businesses and properties, which resulted in severe economic disruption and international condemnation. Known for his erratic behavior and grandiose declarations, Amin portrayed himself as a defender of African independence while fostering close ties with other authoritarian regimes. His unpredictable actions and violent purges plunged Uganda into chaos, crippling infrastructure and public institutions. International isolation intensified as horrific accounts of human rights abuses emerged. Amin's downfall came in 1979 when Tanzanian forces, alongside Ugandan exiles, launched an invasion that forced him into exile. He spent his remaining years in Saudi Arabia, never facing justice for his crimes. Idi Amin's legacy remains one of terror and devastation. His rule emblematic of how absolute power, wielded without restraint, can lead to profound national suffering and enduring trauma.